Welcome to Your Redemptive Birth, a birth story podcast where we hear directly from women who have journeyed from medicalized births to natural ones. I'm Sarah, and together we'll hear from women who have reclaimed birth by taking ownership of their choices and trusting their bodies. Their wisdom will inspire and guide you toward the natural, powerful, deeply fulfilling birth you desire. You are on your way to your redemptive birth. The information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Birth is not a medical event. It is a natural physiological process. Always trust yourself, do your own research, and make the choices that are right for you. This is Your Redemptive Birth. Hey, Jenna, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing very well. Thank you for having me, Sarah. How are you?
I'm great. It is such a pleasure to be talking to you right now. We know each other from the birth world, a little smidge. I don't know tons, and I certainly haven't heard your birth stories beginning to end, and that's what we're here to do today. So maybe tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do in the world, and your family.
Okay. Well, my name is Jenna, and I am a mom of two Earthside children, and I love them tremendously. I am a single mom, and I have a boy who will be 10 this month and a daughter who is 8. I am currently working full-time as a case manager for foster care, and I also am the co-founder of Stateline Birthkeepers, where I have been a certified doula for, it's been 7 years now. And I primarily focus on the postpartum side of things because it gives me the ability to, schedule and do things around my children's lives. But I do take an occasional birth still. And I work in that birthing world myself. So.
Wonderful. Yes. Yeah. You are a wealth of knowledge and you've tremendous experience. And I'm so excited to hear about your births today. So I guess without further ado, why don't you tell us first about your son's birth 10 years ago, almost, holy cow, and what that experience was like for you. Wherever Absolutely. You want to take us. Start with your pregnancy, becoming pregnant, what you felt like as you were journeying through this pregnancy, where you were. Wherever you want to take us. The whole 9 yards, yes.
Okay, well, this is a little bit of a roller coaster. I am originally from the Midwest, and I moved to California in December of 2013 and found myself pregnant about 6 months later. I had failed birth control, and I've always had rough period type situations, and just learned that did not work for me. And I learned the hard way, of course, but I wouldn't trade him for the world. He's my best friend. I love the heck out of that child. But I ended up becoming a single mom. I have had some custody stuff. We co-parented well in the beginning. We haven't gone there. But that pregnancy was, of course, leaning into that world. And it was a rough, crazy, emotional time. So I ended up having hyperemesis gravidarum with him. And I lost 24 pounds in 4 days. And I ended up being hospitalized at 14 weeks pregnant. Of course, 14 weeks is super early and they didn't want to do anything. And I remember sitting in the hospital bed begging for pizza rolls and they wouldn't give them to me. They gave me toast. All I wanted was pizza rolls. They said they'd be too greasy and I'd throw up, which they were probably right, but that's all I wanted. Ended up passing after, about 20 weeks. I was thankfully not one of the women who have it their entire pregnancy. But then I did go into preterm labor at 21 weeks and they were able to get me out during triage. They were able to stop it. And then I was hospitalized for 4 days at 29 weeks with preterm labor again. And then I was hospitalized at 31 weeks with preterm labor again. He ended up being born at 7 pounds, 2 ounces, at 37 weeks. So we were good to go. But there was a lot of craziness in that mix. I did do a traditional hospital birth as a single mom, first time mom, being halfway across the country from my family. I did what people normally do. I went to an OB and I did what they said. And it personally gave me more trauma than I'd care to admit. I ended up moving during my pregnancy. And I know I'm kind of all over the place. I'm sorry.
No, you're doing beautiful.
But when I remember moving in the middle of my pregnancy and I couldn't find an OB right away. So I was driving 2 hours to go to my initial OB. And there was one day I went to go to an OB appointment. It was a later appointment. and I was too tired to make that 2-hour drive home. So I'm like, let me just sleep in the car in this parking lot real quick, take a nap, and I'll leave. Well, I ended up getting locked in the parking lot. And I had to walk back into the building, and me and the security officer became friends because he had to figure out how to like get the door open to let me out of this. But like, it was a whole mess. I talked to him for another like 3 years after that because I felt like I was trauma bonded to him after getting locked into an OB office. But I ended up doing like all the things you're supposed to do. And I went in got to the point where I was about ready to have my son. I'm adopted, and I am connected to both my biological mom as well as the mom who raised me. So I'm a planner, and I tried really hard to have everything planned out. So my son was supposed to come in March of 2015. And my birth mom was going to come out, who's had 5 children, and she was going to come out before he was born. And we were supposed to clean the house. We were supposed to prep everything. She was supposed to be there for my nesting, all of the things. And she landed, and 12 hours later, my water broke. So she got to be there for the birth instead of my mom who raised me, which ended up probably being a good thing because the mom who raised me never had children biologically. So it kind of helped. And the mom that was there, her name is Lavon, and she is still to this day active in the military. So she takes no nonsense. We don't do much feelings. So she had me shopping while in labor. I vividly remember being bent over the fabric cut counter in Joann's, having contractions, laughing because I was like, this is really the life right now. This is what I'm doing. I did run into that employee 4 years later, and she remembered me because I don't think many women are in labor in the middle of Joann's. But I was, and I did have a doula for that birth. She ended up coming over shortly thereafter, and I was able to stay home until about 6 centimeters, and everything seemed perfect, and we were doing great, and I felt good. I was still walking. I was laughing. I was just at the point where I was like, things are amping up. Maybe I should do something. So we all went to the hospital, and I got through the registration process. Everything was fine. The second I went to triage, the environment made me panic. Mm-hmm. I immediately went into it's sterile. I was still in triage, so I had the curtains. I wasn't even in a room yet, and I immediately just started screaming. I don't know. Going back, I feel like the more times I've ran it through my head, I feel like it was just the environment, and I got scared because I was perfectly fine until I went into that room. But it was like the pain intensified, and I immediately went to crowning. It was really weird. I don't know if it was just the perfect timing for transition or what, but the second I got into triage, I started yelling. I was 6 centimeters when I got there. I want to say it was 2 hours later when he was born. Mm-hmm. But that was also a crazy process. I remember my mom telling me to shush, and I very vividly told her, don't tell me to effing shush. And I ripped my IV out, and there was water all over the floor. They thought my water had broken, but it wasn't my water. I was thrashing. I was just in a complete panic, and which is not normal for me. And I just didn't know what was happening. So my plan was to go all natural. I did choose when I was panicking, okay, let me get an epidural. Well, my doula, you only allow one person. I don't know if that's still the rule in every hospital, but I gave birth in Southern California. And at that time, you're allowed one person in for the epidural. And I chose my doula. And she stood in front of me. My arms were over her neck. My head was down with my back arched. And I cut off the circulation to her head, and she passed out during my epidural. I wish that didn't happen, but I do have a picture. I have no problem sending you photos of all of this. There's a picture of her laying across the couch in my room with an ice pack on her head because she passed out during my epidural.
Oh my God.
And I love her tremendously. She also doulaed my next birth. So she was wonderful. But she didn't have her knees bent, and I had my hands around her neck and her circulation cut off, and she passed out, which was wonderful, I guess.
Oh,
they did have to stab me in the back about 4 times because the anesthesiologist kept hitting arteries, and I was spewing blood out my back, and the epidural never worked. It didn't work. It was just a very traumatic experience. when I did have my child, it ended up being, I mentioned my son, but I did do a surprise gender. But the doctor who walked in when I was crowning was a doctor I had never met before. It was the doctor that was just on call. It was a woman. I don't know her name. I don't know anything about her. She gave me an unwanted episiotomy. And I remember my child at the time didn't know what it was, came out, and she asked me if I had anybody to cut the cord. Well, because my mom was there, but it wasn't the plan, I had never had the chance to ask her if she would do that. So I was in the middle of asking her if she'd be willing to cut my cord when the doctor just did it herself, and swooped my son over to the side. And at this time, I still didn't know the gender. And the doctor looked at me, and the first thing she said to me before doing anything, I'm still up in the stirrups. I still haven't seen my child. The first thing this doctor said to me, she looked at me and said, "Did anyone tell you anything would be wrong with his appendages?" And so not in that moment did you tell me something was wrong with my child that I still have never met. You just told me I have a son that I also have not seen. So my response to her was, "No, give me my baby, please." And they were able to give me my son, and he was born missing 5 of his toes and 2 of his fingers. And that was not something they caught during pregnancy. And to find out that there'd be something wrong in that way was just like added on top of the trauma, on top of the everything. And I was just over all of it. They were telling me that they were going to have to take him for more tests because they don't know why, because they didn't catch it while I was pregnant. And I refused to let them go anywhere without without me. Wow. So there was times where I was in a wheelchair getting pushed around the hospital because they were testing my son. And I was like, he's not leaving my sight anywhere. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't put him in the bassinet in the room. He was always on me. They had said when we had to move rooms, I couldn't carry him in the wheelchair, but he would not leave my sight. I was either touching him, even if I fell asleep. If he was not in my arms, I was awake. Eyes were on him until we left that hospital. It was a really traumatic time. And I've obviously gotten a little bit more over it, but because of that, I talked to my doula afterwards, and we had a lot of trauma healing and conversations and just evaluating what happened and what could have gone different and all of those things. And that is one of the reasons I pushed to become a doula. So I attended my first birth uncertified later that same year, and I was certified by the next year.
Wow. This is such a beautiful, powerful story. And that must have been incredibly difficult to go through, first of all. I mean, just acknowledging how hard that must have been, and how strong you were we all know, I mean, maybe not all of us, but those of us who do know that the medical system doesn't really, really want to keep that mother-baby dyad together right there, and especially in those first beginnings. And the fact that you said, absolutely not, like, that will not be taken from me. You've taken all of these other things from me, but you will not take my baby from me right now, is something that's really, really hard for women to do. Even though it's like our most basic instinctive, the good girl comes in and suddenly you think you can't, and you don't want to make anybody else mad because, well, honestly, you're just protecting yourself. You're protecting yourself and your baby. And sometimes internally that can feel like, not saying anything, not letting them, you freeze, it's a fight or flight kind of thing. And so I think a lot of women beat themselves up later because they're like, why didn't I do anything in that moment? Why didn't I tell them no? And it's like, you couldn't have, but then when you did come, back from the birth realm, and you were like, no one is taking my baby from me. Like, how powerful.
I was so angry in that moment. Like, I wish, like, going back, of course, you want this beautiful, calm, relaxing, happy moment. And from the moment I gave birth to my son, before he was in my arms, I was angry. And that is not an emotion that you want to have. I was angry at this woman at that moment, I didn't even know I had an episiotomy. But how dare you ask me if I have somebody to cut the cord and then not even give me the opportunity to answer it? How dare you take away that I just waited my entire pregnancy to find out what the gender of my child was, and you just took that from me? How dare you immediately, the first thing you say after I give birth is putting fear about something wrong with my child, instead of saying, Like I wanted the immediate skin to skin. I wanted all the things. And you, how dare you? Like I was so angry. And that's why I said, I don't even remember her name. In my head, I'm like, it's irrelevant because you are not a good person to me. I don't want you to take space up in me. Like I was so mad. And I stayed mad for a very long time. And I became this overprotective mom there for a sense, which I know all of us have the immediate like, but my son did not have a bottle for 6 months. My son, I remember waking up from a nap when my son was, I think he was 4.5 months old. And it was the first time he left his house without me. He was on a walk with my mom, but she forgot to tell me. And I panicked like this. And I ended up being okay, of course, but like, I would not let my baby go anywhere because I'm like, I need to protect you at all costs because this is what the world brought you into. Like, I was so mad, which is not a good emotion to have. I don't wish that on anybody. I don't want you to be mad after your birth. Like,
right. But it's like that environment will just make you mad. It will make you mad.
Yes. And I guess a lot of it's mad and fear. Like you're like, I think the reason my birth changed so much from being perfectly fine before I got there was the environment of fear. But then you're also fear of if you don't listen to them, what are they going to do? What can they say? The authoritative, you listen to me or else, even if nobody says that to you, that's what society is kind of ingrained into you. So I support moms choosing the birth of their choice. And that is my whole thing now that I am a doula is I want you to have the pros and the cons of everything. And I'm going to support the choice you make because this is your choice. So if you want a hospital birth with an epidural and you want to be knocked out the whole thing, I will 100% support you. But if that's not what you want, I want you to be able to have what you want because so much of that was taken from me.
Absolutely. Keeping mom 100% in the driver's seat of her birth. I think that's where so much trauma happens is when that's taken away or when women give it up, you know? And if we can just keep mom in control of her birth, that means, you know, we're going to hopefully come to an experience that she's not going to see as traumatic. And yeah, for sure. I wanted to touch back on something you said, in the wake of this really hard birth, you said you did a lot of trauma healing work with your doula. And I was curious what that looked like and how it was helpful to you and maybe how that informs what you do for women today.
So one of the things, she was not trained in it, so she talked to me and I did research, and I have since been able to do is there's a ceremony called a rebirth, and we essentially kind of makeshifted one with me. We didn't know what we were doing. We were reading online. She had never done it before, but we felt like after reading about it, it might be something that would be positive. So a rebirth ceremony is essentially like faking your birth. You're rebirthing. You're doing it again. And it kind of tricks your brain in a way to when you think back of your birth, you can rerun the traumatic portions with this one that you redid. So I did not do a water birth because, again, all of the things. And so we didn't rebirth a water birth, which is normally how you kind of redo it is you sit in the bathtub and you relax and you baby sitting, of course, head above water, and you kind of bring it back to your chest and you kind of like relive that moment. With me, we just kind of like laid in a bed and we relaxed and we talked. And I essentially tried to modify the experience in my head so that I had something else and a different vision in my, and like, I know what happened. It's not like trying to be delusional and forget what happened, but it's a way to like relax and relive in a positive light and being able to have more control of that situation. So doing that, she did a lot of, I'm trying to think what it was called. It was like a meditative situation where we would listen to the videos that told you how to relax and to watch the goal. And that helped a lot. And just giving a space where you are free to talk. I ended up joining some local groups. They were more bereavement groups, but it's a loss. So there's a bunch of different types of loss. And for me, that loss was just the control. I felt like I lost myself. I lost the control in the birth I wanted. So I started meeting women and there was different components of loss and everybody. And I don't think I ever even shared, but just being around women who kind of felt that and being able to build that connection was another thing. They had hosted bereavement support groups, and there was a group out there at that time. I don't know if it still exists. It's called the AVBRN. It's the Antelope Valley Birth Resource Network. And mothers would just come and have coffee and sit together. And I would start attending those. They had local doulas and other birth workers and midwives, but just a lot of moms, and being able to build that and just have that resource and find a place where you felt safe and to talk. And that helped a lot on being able to relax. And I can't change what happened, but I can change if I do future births, which I did. I can make different choices. I can advocate for myself. I can have this village around me. And I can move forward at peace, even though I'm not happy with what happened, I'm at peace with what happened. And she was able to kind of help me walk through that process.
Wow. I think that is like the key. That's the key to having that next birth that you have is all of that work that you did in the wake of that birth. You worked and you figured it out and you decided what you wanted the next time around. And it makes me feel beautiful. That's just gorgeous. So do you have any other advice you'd like to give mothers who might be feeling really disempowered by the birth experience that they had?
Find somebody to talk to. It doesn't need to be a therapist. It doesn't need to be of course, those are all beneficial resources, but I know finances are tight, not insurances, wait lists, all of that. Find a mom, find a group, find a doula. Most of us we're not in this work for money. We're in this work because of passion and heart. Most of us, there's a lot of times where I sit on Facebook Messenger and women just have reached out to me and we just sit and chat. That's my evening. I'm not charging for that time. It's just, I don't want any mom to feel like she's alone in any component. If you're struggling with something as simple as baby's not sleeping and I'm tired. Okay. Let's talk. I can come over and help. But if you aren't ready for that, if you don't want that, just be able to have a space and a person that you feel comfortable unloading to without being a burden. And they might be in your circle already. They might be somebody that you haven't met yet, but having those connections is extremely important in my eyes. It's vital to be able to not hold all that in and just be able to get it off your chest, be able to talk about it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for these. This is a really important conversation, and I really think that it's going to help the women it needs to help. So thank you.
I hope so. It'll get to where it needs to be, right?
Yeah, it'll get where it needs to go. Absolutely. Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to share about that birth experience before we move on to the redemptive side of your story?
I don't think so. There might be a little hiccups because I'm all over the place. So things might pop up, but in general, no, I think that is my son, who's now an amazing little boy who's almost 10.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. All right. Tell us about getting pregnant the next time.
So my daughter, I found out I was pregnant the week before my son turned 1. So they are very close. They are a year and a half apart. So there wasn't much healing time between giving birth to my son and finding out I was pregnant again. I had about 11 to 12 month window there. And my daughter is a firecracker. That one, I was scared. I'll be honest. I was absolutely terrified. And I didn't want to seek assistance. I had considered a free birth, but that scared me too. And I just kind of sat frozen. I initially found one of those cute little clinics that you can pay for an ultrasound. And that was all of my medical care until 15 or 16 weeks. And then I started looking into what about midwives? What about this? What about that? There was one specific midwife who had just opened a birth center in town.
And this is still out in California, right?
Yes, I am still in California. Okay. I am in the northern part of Los Angeles County at this point. And she had just opened the first birth center. I knew there was other midwives, but a lot of them were 20, 30 minutes away in any direction. There really wasn't any in this town. And actually this midwife lived 20, 30 minutes away, but chose to open her office here. And the financial piece was the part that was a dagger in my chest. I am still at that point, I am 23 years old, across the country from my family. I had just had a child, so I didn't really have my life together yet. It was just, I was not. And this midwife, I knew that I had already started working in the birth world. At this point, I had 2 births under my belt and was working on I was almost done with my training, or my first little certification thing. And she kind of, I feel like, I hate saying it this way, but I feel like she took pity on me. So at the time, I did have insurance that sort of covered midwifery, but not fully. So she gave me the option. She said, why don't we bill your insurance, and whatever they pay for is your bill. You won't owe anything on top of that. I will just take what the insurance says they'll cover. And so she discounted her rate for me. And I cried. She's still in practice now, and absolutely an amazing human being. And we did very, very minimal, because of everything that had happened. I wanted very minimal interventions. So I never had a single cervical check of any kind. I think we only did 3 or 4 prenatals, because I do have a blood clot disorder in my family that I've never personally had a blood clot, but I was diagnosed with an abnormality, which fast forward to like 2-3 years ago, I was told is absolutely nothing. But at that point in time, they didn't know anything. So we were checking my blood, but very, very minimal. I had a little bit of trauma with this pregnancy, nothing crazy. I had no preterm labor. I had no anything. Very natural. Just, I was able to hide my pregnancy, majority of it, because the job, pregnancy would be a liability. So I would just hide it, and I didn't tell anyone I was pregnant, and I was able to just go on about my day. The only trauma I had was my blood work came back really kind of wonky about a week or 2 before my daughter ended up being born. And she essentially told me, or she probably didn't tell me it this way, but how my pregnancy mind at that point took it was my blood is not clotting at all. And if I hemorrhage, even if I was in the hospital, they may not be able to save me, because it is clot. It's, even if they are like fully ready and they are, all the blood is there and all the things, I'm losing and going so fast that there would be. So I was like, okay, I'm bleeding out. Fantastic.
Wait a minute. Was it platelets? Were your platelets really low?
I don't remember exactly what she said.
Okay.
So I have a 4G, 5G mutation, my plasminogen activator inhibitor 1, which essentially they explained to me is there's a thing in your blood that clots, and then there's a thing in your blood that tells the thing to clot. I have in the thing that tells the thing to clot, I have a mutation. So how they explained it is normally that thing will be like, okay, you're supposed to clot when you're not supposed to. And I'd have a blood clot in my leg or something. I have never had that problem, but people in my family have. Gotcha. But for some reason when I was pregnant, it changed. And it's like, oh, we don't clot at all anymore. So she put the fear of God in me. And I was I want to say at that point, I was maybe 37 weeks. And I had my, at the time, 1-year-old son. And I remember laying in the bathtub, sobbing uncontrollably, preparing, like, what do I need to prepare for the fact that I might die in 2 weeks? Like,
oh my gosh.
What do I need to prepare for? So I was like, you know what? If it happens, I can't do anything about it. The universe is going to do what it's supposed to do. She just essentially, again, probably, I don't remember having this conversation with her. I remember how I felt. So I remember feeling like that is what was going to happen. And I came to terms, again, a lot of trauma healing from Grayson made me realize that, for my son, sorry, you guys don't know my child. But I kind of took some of those same things where you can't change this. You have to let your control go. There's nothing you can do about this. In the best case scenario, these are options. In the worst case scenario, these are options. Let's just hit the ground and let's figure it out. Like, this is what we're going to do. So I just kind of pretended it didn't happen, and moved on and tried to make sure my family knew what my wishes were. And I was like, that's it. I can't do anything else about this. So we're just going to go. And I ended up, I was 39 weeks when I woke up one morning and I had a little heart-shaped wet spot on my bed. And every time I moved, it kind of like squished just a little bit. I texted my midwife and I was like, I think my water might have broke, but like, it's not like movie gush. So like, I don't know. And I just went on about my day. I put a bat on and just kind of went about it. And I decided, I'm like, we're 39 weeks. I should probably start getting stuff ready. So I went to the grocery store and I got a bunch of snacks and Gatorades and juices and stuff for my kid. And I was like, we're just going to kind of go about our day. My midwife woke up a few hours later, and she, in her big mom, like, shame on you type voice, told me, if you think your water breaks, you don't text me. That is an emergency. You're supposed to call and wake me up. I was like, it wasn't that big of a deal. I wasn't contracting. Like, we were fine.
I agree with you, Jenna. I'd say for other women who might be listening to this and go, wait, my water broke. I don't necessarily feel like I need to tell anybody right away. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, for
I
a
just
lot of
text
women,
you.
yeah, like your water can break and you cannot start contractions for 3 days. I mean, most likely you'll start within like 12 to 24 hours, but say it doesn't, Oh,
Yeah.
kidding.
So I just went about my day. I decided
good for you.
it might be smart to put up my birthing pool, because at this point I had decided to do a home birth instead of her birth center.
And so you did that even knowing so that you had the information that you had about your blood, whatever, and you decided this is still what I want. And I'm sorry that you had to go into that with fear still. Like that's just unfair.
And honestly, I feel like most of that fear I was able to put away. I don't remember being scared during labor at all.
Amazing.
I had come to peace with it's going to happen, whatever is going to happen. And I actually lived at that time about 40 minutes from the nearest hospital. And I chose to I was doing it because I think a lot of it with the stuff from my previous birth.
Absolutely.
I was going to do the home birth that I wanted, and whatever was going to happen was going to happen. So I set up my birthing pool in the middle of my living room, and I put up Christmas lights and candles and birthing affirmation cards and all of the things. And nothing happened. We just kind of kept. I didn't have water in my pool because nothing was happening. So we just kind of chilled and we waited. And I texted my midwife around, I want to say like 6 or 7 that same night. And I said, I'm going to take a nap. Nothing's happening. And she said, okay, that's fine. If nothing starts happening until like 5 or 6 tomorrow morning, we might do some natural things of some squats or like different movements or stuff to try to see if we can get labor moving. Because if your water is leaking, she said, just don't take a bath. Like, don't risk the infection part of things if your water is leaking. Right. But other than that, she's pretty much just like, don't worry about it.
Yeah. And another thing in that vein is, so obviously your water being open, the risk of infection is what we're concerned about. But women are like scared of their bodies. They're like, you'll know if you have an infection. You're going to have a fever. You're not going to feel very good. Like, you know what I mean? Your body's going to tell you that you have an infection.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm like, and okay, sure. If you have an infection and you're realizing that, then okay, you might want to go to the hospital, get some antibiotics. You might want to, I think midwives can give antibiotics at home if that's, the case for, if that was something that was going to make you feel better about your birth. But like, ultimately, I like your approach, and I respect you for your approach. Like, my birth, what's going to happen is going to happen. And I trust myself. I trust my body. I know I'm healthy. Let's just do this. Okay. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's exactly what it was. And little fast forward, it paid off. Just saying, it paid off. I took a nap and didn't hear my phone go off the few times my midwife texted. And I guess I made her get in a panic. I woke up at like 12:30 right after midnight, and I saw missed calls from her. And I called her and told her, oh, I just woke up. Everything's fine. There's nothing going on. Got up and got a glass of water. By about 1 o'clock, I had a contraction. I let her know I had a contraction. And she goes, okay, I'll come over and check. My daughter was born in 3 contractions. She came out the 3rd contraction. My birthing pool had about 6 inches of water in it. My underwear were still on. And they ended up, she was 20 minutes old before anybody got there. I called my doula. I had a photographer and a midwife, and none of them made it to the birth. And she just decided we were doing this and we were doing this well. And I feel I contribute a lot of her fast labor to the fact that I was relaxed. I was calm. I was in my own space. I was comfortable about what was happening. My son was asleep in one room. I had Christmas lights up. I was perfectly at peace and content with everything that had happened. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't scared. I wasn't angry. And I had one contraction, leaned over my kitchen counter, and I called my midwife, and she said she was on her way. And I called my mom and just told her. And about 20 minutes later, I called my mom again and said, we have a baby. And the first thing my mom said was, are you effing shitting me? um, because it had been 20 minutes from my first contraction till I am now calling her and telling her I have a child in my hands. Um, with the trauma with my son, I did a surprise gender again to try to like redeem myself, I guess.
Absolutely.
Pun intended, by the way. Redeem myself with that. And
Yeah.
the first thing my mom asked me was what it was, and I didn't check. I forgot to check. The first thing I checked was, does she have her fingers and her toes? Because my son was born without them. And I found out I had my little girl. And my underwear, as I said, were still on. By the time my midwife got there, she said she almost got pulled over. She's going 95 miles an hour because she lived 30 minutes away. She was the second one to walk in. My doula was the first. And my doula was the same doula for my first birth, who I still have contact with now 10 years later. And she looked at me and she goes, you doulaed yourself at this point. Like, why am I even here? Like, it was absolutely wonderful. I actually had an assistant midwife show up for this one too, who was training. And I don't know if she got credit though, because like nobody was there. But my baby was 20 minutes old when everybody got there. And they actually had to take a kitchen knife and cut the sides of my underwear because my placenta had already released and tried to birth itself. And my underwear were holding it halfway in and halfway out. So they had to let that go to let my placenta, but I got to do the delayed cord clamping that I wanted to do. So I have pictures of the completely white cord in a shape of a heart, still connected from the placenta to my baby. It was probably connected for almost 2 hours, I think, which is unnecessarily long, but it was when I was ready to let it go. I got to cut my own cord.
Then it was completely necessary for 2 hours because if you were ready, that's all that matters.
Very true. You're right.
Yeah.
But I got to cut my own cord, and I did tear, but I also blame that to the fact that it was extremely fast. But it was on my terms, and I got to crawl after she got me up off the floor of my living room. We made our way to my bed, and I got to do more, not essentially perfect, but of the 5-5-5, the 5 days in bed, 5 days next to the bed, like all of the things. And I got to just be home with my babies. My son got to meet his sister for the first time in my bed, in my home. And she is a firecracker ever since that day. Like you're going to come in 3 contractions. She's named Ember, like a fire. And she has lived up to that now at 8.5 years old. She is my little fire. But the birth taught me something completely different than my son's. It was a completely opposite experience. It was everything that I could have imagined. And I didn't hemorrhage, so I didn't have any bleeding. I was perfectly fine. I trusted the universe to what was going to happen was going to happen. And here we are 10 years later almost. And I'm just fine. I'm being told that my blood clotting disorder is really essentially nothing. And that I have these 2 beautiful children. And I have that, like when I go back to relive my births, I'm able to be at peace with what happened to my son and feel redeemed when it comes to what happened to my daughter. And I love that I had 2 very different experiences, but I bet you can guess if I were to have another one, which one I would do again.
I mean, yes. So true. What a beautiful story, Jenna. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm actually curious too. So these 3 contractions, like, holy cow, first of all, wow.
The third one was crowning. That was the ring of fire. That was the 3rd contraction.
Holy cow. So what did that like viscerally, I'm just curious if you can describe for us like what that viscerally felt like were the contractions like 3 minets long, or was it like a, like a 60-second contraction?
So like, I guess I kept out some of those details, didn't I? Let's spill all this tea. We're going to be here and spill the tea. So the first one, I was bent over my counter. I want to say it was probably 1.5 to 2 minutes, where it was like, this is the first one that like I couldn't walk and talk. Like I had those little where you were like, oh, these might be Braxton Hicks type ones, but nothing that like felt like anything was happening. This was the first one I was like, oh, okay, we need to pause. But it lasted maybe 1.5 minutes or so, maybe 2 minutes. I was able to keep standing, and I was just, and it was just like I felt, because my last one was hours long. I felt like, okay, we're actually going to ramp up. Like, let's start getting ready for this.
Yeah.
The second one, I was on my knees hugging my birth ball. Again, probably same amount of time. Honestly, maybe even less, 45 seconds to a minute. Where I was just like, and no noises, just like I was on my knees hugging my birth ball with my head to the side, and I was rocking back and forth. And then I was fine. And the third one was actually on the phone with my midwife for, and I wish I was able to hear, but I was a little preoccupied. I remember her asking me, because I was yelling at this point, it was my third one. And I remember her asking me, do I need to call an ambulance? And I was able to vaguely groan out the word no. She said something thereafter. Don't know what that was. And the next thing I said was, the head is out. And I hear her go, oh, okay. Don't remember what she said after that. Nothing what she said. And I'm on my knees with my elbows on my couch cushion. And I gave birth right there and like sat down on the floor. And the first thing I said after giving birth to my daughter, completely contrary to my son, where I'm yelling at someone to give me my baby, was, well, I feel better now. That was the first thing I said. And my midwife is on the other end. She goes, I bet you do, Jenna. I bet you do. And I was like, yeah, I think we're good. And she obviously knows about my blood condition. And most of the time hemorrhaging happens after the baby comes out, either right after that or placenta releasing, somewhere in that. So she did not make it any type of panic on my side where I never heard it. But I guarantee that she panicked and freaked out and started driving faster at that point, because she knew that I just had a baby and have this blood situation that may or may not become a serious issue very quickly. And she also knew I was alone at my house. So I did have a friend coming over to help watch my son in case of an emergency. But that friend was also not a mom, had not experienced, like, she was there to hang out with my 1-year-old. So nobody knew what was going on. We didn't know what was happening. I'm just holding a child at this moment and completely feels surreal because.
Wait, so your friend is sitting there with you right now?
No, she walked in.
She walks in and you're holding the baby.
But I'm just sitting there. I'm like, it was just a surreal moment. Like, what just happened? Because that was literally the third contraction. Like, the reason I was yelling was it was the ring of fire. We were having the head at that moment. And I still to this day just like relive it. I'm like, that really just happened. And my mom made the joke, if I ever have another one, be prepared for an 8-minute labor, because this one was only 30. So
no kidding.
But she's 8.5 now and wild and crazy and all the things. So
yeah, they I think that's true. I don't know. My kids are so small that I don't know yet, but like, I really think their personalities you can see it from their births.
I do. And I never had heard that, never believed that. But my son and I don't know if it's because I coddled the heck out of him as an infant, but even to this day, like, he just sat on my lap this morning and cuddled with me and told me how much he loved me. And he's just my mama's boy. My daughter is my fire. And she was rolling over at 3 weeks old. She was talking in full sentences by 1.5. If you walk into a room, everybody knows who my daughter is. She is that child. She is the sparkly dresses center, but she's so loving and so helpful. I just was talking to a friend who's seen her with babies and seen her as a human, my daughter. And we're like, we have a birth worker in the making. Like,
oh, yes.
That she cares and has so much empathy and loves babies and all of the things, but she's also a force. And that has been very much true since the birth of her beginning of her life. Like, she is a force and we're not going to mess with her. She's going to do what she wants in her time, how she wants to do it. And nobody can tell her different.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. And I think, like, what a gift. Like, she gave you such a gift and you also gave her such a gift. It's like this mutual, beautiful thing that you guys did in your birth together. And, yes, wonderful.
Yeah, she's a sweet, like, I love how you said it. Like, yes, I gave her a gift too, but I really do view it as she gave me more than I think she'll ever realize she gave me. Aww. She healed a portion of me that I knew was broken, but I don't think I realized to the extent it was broken. I had already tried and worked so hard to heal that portion of me prior to even knowing she was coming. But being able to not just heal and be at peace with it, but be able to know that there's a different ending that I can have, that this story is not a different woman's story. This can be my story too, that I gave myself the trust and the ability, but my daughter gave me that gift.
Yes. And not to mention, she's going to grow up and have this story that she knows what's true about birth.
Well, she
knows
tells
how
everybody.
she came
She
into
told
the
somebody
world.
this morning.
Yeah.
She knew that I was going to be coming on here to talk about their birth stories. And she told 3 people this morning.
Huh.
I was birthed on my living room floor. I was born on my living room floor. Just like, yeah, girl, you were. Like, you don't know the extent of all of it, but you know you were born on the living room floor.
Yes. And I love what you said.
It's hilarious.
That is hilarious. But I love what you said, that she won't maybe know, maybe until she has a birth, when she gives birth, but she won't know the gift that she gave you. You're right. Yeah. Until
never know.
She's in.
I don't even know if even when she's a mom herself, because I want her to know from the jump, with me working in birth work and having both those experiences, she's going to be fully informed and be able to make her choices. I don't think she'll fully understand, because I don't want or wish or hope or think that she will ever have the traumatic birth that she saved me from. So I feel like she will always feel empowered and she will know that power, but I don't think she'll ever understand the redemption that she
Yes. Mm-hmm. Wow. There's just so much I could ask you about, but I'm really curious what you did with your placenta.
Both of them. My doula was brand new with my son, and then I chose to do it again with my daughter. I encapsulated my placenta. And actually, I still have some of my daughters now, 8.5 years later, because I was told, and from what I've read, that if you keep it for menopause, it will help ease menopause. So I didn't use it all, but I was able. I feel like I guess in a way I had postpartum depression, but I don't think it was nearly to the severity of being able to like put a diagnosis on it. And I feel like that placenta encapsulation helped with that. My doula did that for me. She surprised me. I know most doulas do this, but at the time I didn't know. She did placenta prints for me. So I had canvases hanging up on my wall of the tree of life. And they were it was a really kind of another healing step. I still have some downstairs. And because I'm friends with her and I was one of her first, and I'm a very relaxed, chill person who finds birth and all of the stuff super interesting, and I'm nerdy about it. I let her kind of have fun and play with my placenta too. So I have bubblegum and cherry flavored encapsulated pills too, on top of the normal ones. And I have some of all of them downstairs.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm also curious too, just like talking about how you said you birthed and your underwear were literally still on you, like, yes. This baby like falls out of your underwear out of the floor.
Yeah. And then like moves to the side a little bit and just like is there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am just curious, the birth of your placenta, was it just detached on its own? You didn't have to push. Yeah. It was like, yeah.
I don't even remember birthing my placenta.
Yeah.
I remember I have photos. When my friend walked in, she took pictures. So I do have a picture of my underwear still on. I'm holding my phone and holding my baby, and you can see the placenta being held in by my underwear. But the only thing I remember about birthing my placenta at all is after they used the kitchen knife to cut both sides, because I couldn't tell you where a scissor was in that moment.
Absolutely
I felt the like gush of the rest of it falling out, where it's just like, let me wiggle my way out of here. But that's the only thing I remember. I don't remember contractions to birth my placenta. I don't remember any of it. I feel like the universe decided to just give me that redemption, where it was like, we're going to make this one easy on you. We're just going to let this go. Like.
Yeah. So, well, and I love too that your midwife on the phone didn't make you fearful in that moment, because she could have decided, to get all crazy and get all anxious and
very easily could have called 911 without asking my permission or my consent to do so. Because she knew she wasn't there and I'm yelling like crazy. When I said I had the head was out, she very easily could have called somebody. Because again, she knows my blood condition and I'm 40 minutes from a hospital and I am by myself in this moment. When I finished, like, she could have easily done any of those things, but I feel like she also knew she was going to get there before an ambulance was anyway. So, but she is still practicing, and She's an amazing human and is actually, I just saw, relocating from the West Coast down in the California region. And I think she said within the next month or so, she will be now practicing in the Midwest. Our practice areas are not going to overlap, but we both are going to be able to service the same state, just different sides of it. So she's going to be within a few hours proximity. And I have shared I know nobody around here is going to be able to have her because she's a little too far, but I have shared with all of my birthing people, like my midwife, my wonderful midwife is relocating out here. And I'm so excited for the women out here who are going to be able to experience her because she helped me have this wonderful experience.
That is so cool. So awesome. And weird how the universe works this way.
Yeah, it's so strange.
Right? Okay. So I guess I have a few more questions for you, but I wanted to touch on your experience in the bereavement world as well. Because I think a lot of women, this is something that it's hard to talk about, and not a lot of women are talking about it, and you have such knowledge and wisdom. So maybe if you'd like to share the ways in which you've supported women who have gone through loss in pregnancy and beyond.
Okay. So bereavement is essentially, for those who don't know that fancy term, because I didn't for a very long time, bereavement is essentially just another word for loss. And primarily when people think of bereavement, they think of like a SIDS situation or a stillbirth situation. Those are the first things to focus, but there is also other kinds of bereavement. Bereavement could be like a terminal illness, like diagnosis, like if you get trisomy 18, that babies don't live past a few weeks, maybe a few months. It's very surprising to have a long life, but you get diagnosed with that in pregnancy. And it's, you're going to lose your child. And so that is a loss. Miscarriages are a loss, and abortions are also a loss. Everybody views them differently. I don't like the word abortion. I view it as a chosen loss because you may want that child, you may love that child, but circumstances may not allow. I can't speak on anybody else's story, but I will speak on mine. I was supposed to have another child in 2018. And I did get pregnant. And at that time, I had my two. I was in a very, very tough situation financially. I was a single mom, and I was commuting 2.5 hours to work each way because of traffic. It was supposed to be a 45-minute drive, according to like Google Maps, when I looked when I accepted the job. But I didn't look at the peak of traffic times. And it was paying $4 an hour more than any other job that I had been offered in my local area. And as a single mom, I needed the money. Mm-hmm. So I was commuting 2.5 hours each way to work and back. I, at the time, had my I'm trying to think. No, my sister was going to be living with me. I think she either had just left or was going to. She wasn't there at this moment. But she was taking care of my children when I go to work, and I would just sleep in my car 4 nights a week so that I didn't have to do the commute and I didn't have to do the gas. This one's father was already a dad, and we were still friends. Like, we just were talking like 3 weeks ago. We still communicate to this day. But neither of us were in a position. And I put it in my head where this child has a name. This child has a date that both the due date is still on my calendar to this day. The date of loss is still on my calendar to this day. I celebrate, I know him offhand. It was April 28th. And it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, but it wasn't a decision I made lightly. I don't regret my decision. I'm, again, very at peace, and I have healed a lot, but I feel like I was having to choose between the kind of life I could give my children that are earthside already, or what would end up possibly happening. 2 months after, not even a month and a half after that, my house burnt down with us inside of it. So I truly believe the universe we made the right decision in that moment, because then we were starting over completely. I would have been doing all of that while pregnant. But I did have a chosen loss myself. And that, again, is a situation where I feel like you just need to have some type of support. Again, I'm very much, I will support you in whatever choice you make for your life. That could be something that I agree or don't agree with. It might be something, that choice I would not make, but I believe in the right to choose for your life, and I will support any choice you make. And that's what a lot of us are. So I've been able to assist women through early term miscarriages, which most of the time nobody will do anything for because they're early. They're not viable. It's not worth anything. So I have driven multiple states. I want to say the farthest I've gone was somebody called me about a miscarriage, and I got in my car the next day, and drove 7 hours, and I sat with them, and I crocheted a shawl, and I just sat, and I was like, I don't know what you want to do, but I'm just going to sit here and hold space. And we talked about it, and then we talked about other things, and then we went shopping, and we talked about things that we could do in memory of them, because to most people that child just doesn't exist, but to you it does, and it did, and it always will. But of course it gets, I can't even say harder, but society's view of it being harder when you get to those late terms, those stillbirths, those ones where the child comes out breathing and then passes or has that terminal illness, where we know we're going to lose that baby. Those are situations that a lot of families deal with that are really hard to talk about, that they don't feel like they have support, and they don't have that. And that's something that I chose to also get a certification in, because I feel like that is something that we need, people need to know that there is community, there is a village, and we can, if it's small as you just need us to sit on the couch with you, or if you want to be left alone, but you can't get up to nourish your own body, like, okay, let us bring you dinner. Let me make sure that you know you're not alone. You're not the only one that experiences this, but your feelings are valid, and you can take the time that you need to heal in whatever way you need it. But you don't have to do it alone.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. I feel this so deeply in my own body, just listening to you speak. And again, I just want to be a conduit for your words. And I know that your words will reach the women who really, really, your words will be a salve to their hurt and their wounds and their pain. And it feels important to just hold space. So thank you.
Just hold space. That's my biggest role, is I'm here to hold the space
Just
for you to do it and feel what you need to feel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Thank you. Well, on that note, gosh, I don't even know where to go from here. What do you want to say? Where do you want to go from here?
I'm open to whatever, honestly. I think the biggest thing is just, I really want to encourage women to find their village. And villages are hard. I hate saying that it takes a village, because not many people have that village. I didn't have that village for many years, and it takes work to find that village and find people, but to be able to build that village, it's a give and it's a take, and it's being able to trust that women are going to be there for you, but also know that they can trust you to be there for them. And my village is small. I have a very small, close-knit, to this day. I think I have 3 or 4 people that I leave my children with, and it's been 10 years. Like, there's not many. But I also know that there's multiple people in different parts of the country that I can call if my life is bonkers, and I'm just, hey, you got like 5 minutes? Like, and I don't expect you to solve my problems. I don't expect you to give me answers. Half the time, I don't even need you to say anything. I just need to be able to have somebody that I can unload on, but also they know they can also call me and unload on me. That village is hard to find sometimes, but it's out there. And if anybody doesn't have that village, we are working on building one here in the upper northern Illinois region for people, which I might not be your person. I might not blend with you. You might not like me, and that's okay. But somebody else here might be. But if you need somebody in that inner term, a lot of us, even just on social media, our inboxes are open. You don't need permission to message me. If you just need something, if I got the time, I will listen. I will hold space and be your temporary village if you don't have one. Everybody needs somebody, even if you don't know them.
Oh, that is so generous of you. And well, I'll definitely be putting your Instagram in the show notes for those who would like to connect. Maybe share it here as well, just in case. Are you Instagram or Facebook?
We're on both.
Okay.
We have, I'm one of the co-founders, so I'm not the only one. We are Stateline Birthkeepers. And that is our @handle. That is what we are, just @Stateline Birthkeepers. But a lot of those times you'll also see us connect on our personal pages as well. My name is Jenna, but I know that Michaela is our other co-founder. She's been on the podcast already. We are open and willing. Our biggest thing is just being able to be a place for the community and being able to serve those. So yeah, @Stateline Birthkeepers. We're on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok.
All right. What does a redemptive birth mean to you?
Finding your power. I thought I was powerful on my first birth. I thought I knew what I wanted. I wrote my birth plan and I had the doula and I went to the appointments and I had decided I was doing natural and I was going to stay home as long as possible. But then I got in there and I got scared and I followed the status quo. And for me, it didn't turn out anything like I hoped or anything that I wanted. Which I guess, hey, if I go in there wanting something and something else happens, of course it's not what I wanted. But when it comes to something that you can't do again, that this is a birth, like this is a big deal thing. I didn't realize how much that would stick with me. I didn't realize how much following what somebody else says and like just not believing in myself and not trusting myself, how much that would affect me afterwards. Because there's other things in life that you just do what you're told and then you move on. This wasn't one of those things, at least not for me, where you could just move on from doing what somebody told you that you didn't want to do. I feel like redemptive birth really, for me, was just finding my power and finding my strength and being able to truly trust myself, that this is what I want, regardless of what anybody else tells me. This is what I want. And this is what I'm going to do. And I trust myself and I trust my body to give me what I am worthy of, and end up being this beautiful experience. So yeah, if I want to just summarize it, it's finding your power.
Wonderful. I completely agree. Oh, yes. Okay. And then if you could leave our listeners with one key takeaway from your journey, what would it be?
Trusting yourself. And I know I kind of just touched on that, but truly dig down into your soul and know what you are capable of, which I'm going to tell you, I don't even know you, but I guarantee you are capable of a heck of a lot more than you think you are. Take the time. You have months of pregnancy while this baby is developing to connect with your baby, but also to connect with your heart and really dig down and find out, what do you want this to look like? What experience do you want to take away? And don't listen to your mama or your grandma or your auntie or whoever is telling you what needs to happen. Take the time to listen to yourself and trust yourself and just believe you can accomplish and give. This is, yes, as we talked about, my daughter gave me this gift, but this is also a gift you're giving to yourself of trusting and believing in yourself. You need to be able to take the time and give yourself that gift too. And like, of course, if something goes crazy because birth is unexpected, we can pivot if we really need to, but don't drop your beliefs and your desires just because somebody tells you to. Trust yourself, and then we can go from there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jenna, for your wisdom, for your words, for your beautiful births. They will reach the ears of the women they need to reach. Thank you for listening to Your Redemptive Birth. If you enjoyed today's show, please leave a review on your listening platform to help this podcast reach the women it needs to reach. If you have a redemptive birth story you would like to share, please email me at sarah@yourredemptivebirth.com. I would love to hear from you. Let's spread the redemptive birth word together.